greetings, and welcome. Thank you very much, Mr. Khalid, for gracing us with your presence and this amazing topic that I am actually also very looking forward to learning a lot about.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you. I appreciate it.
How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm good. Just a bit nervous. Your message made me nervous. I was fine.
Why?
Until you said you're nervous. Then I'm like, if someone with such a bio is nervous, who was I?
No, I'm good on set. I'm very bad at speaking to a group of people. So I'm just a little nervous, but I'll be okay. I think we'll get through it together.
No, we'll do this. We'll do this.
Yeah. So
Actually,
just
without
apologies about
Pardon?
the sound. I'm at the airport, so just apologize if there's any extra sound. Yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. Okay, cool. Yeah. So I think we can proceed.
Okay. So do you want me to just start and we'll have a conversation, or how do you want to?
Definitely.
Okay.
Because I'm interested. Yeah. Just go in, and then I know I'll have questions. I'll just jot down my questions, and I hope everyone who'll be joining us will do the same, and then we'll just ask the questions at the end. I think.
Okay, great. I think. Look, I do want to, maybe change it up a little, and I think we spoke about this earlier, but. So I've been planning for this session since I found out about it, obviously, and I have like copious notes about journalization and stuff. I want to share this because I think it's important that I wanted to come here today and be as like sincere and as genuine as possible, because we don't always get things right and we don't always present like this perfect image. And I think it's important that people engage and learn from the mistakes and that we share the mistakes. So that's the first thing I wanted to say. The second thing I wanted to say is this is a sharing session. This is not a masterclass. I'm not a lecturer. This is not a lecture. This is me engaging with my fellow filmmakers and trying to share some of the experiences I have. That's more or less kind of the way I see it. So if you excuse me if I kind of pause for a second to think, because I'm really trying to engage with you as in the moment as much as I can be, if that's okay.
That's perfect. I hope everyone who's joining us live is going to catch on and just take this as a conversation.
Fantastic. Yeah, and it would be great. I don't know how maybe I guess we should have chatted about this beforehand, but I don't know how the question or the involvement part goes. But if anybody has any questions and is able to, while I'm speaking, I'm happy to engage with that person. Cool. So yeah, that's the way I think we can do it. And I think Bash is saying he'll monitor the feeds, which is great. Thanks, Bash.
On top of the game. Yeah. Thank you, Bash.
Thanks. Okay, so I guess we'll get started. Really what I wanted to talk about is something that I've been exploring for a few years now, and that I've been putting a lot of time into researching, practicing, and trying to refine and put into my experiences as a filmmaker. And that's something I call journalization. Sorry, I'm going to put it here because of my beard, so I'll put it right here. Journalization for me is personal cinematic filmmaking. It's an approach. It's my perspective on cinema and the way I think it should be perceived, or not the way it should be perceived, but the way my personal experiences are with film, and a different avenue that I think is a great avenue for unestablished filmmakers and filmmakers who don't have as much resources as would need be, right? So personal cinematic filmmaking, I'll start with the personal. I think it's important because the personal perspectives that we have as Black and brown people, as people from different specific cultures, I don't think is being translated correctly, right? I think we are not the controllers of our own images. I think that we are renditions of other people's ideas. Very kind of basic example is this idea of Africa, right? Africa being addressed as a country, where they say, okay, well, this is an African film. There is no African country. There is a South Africa, there's a Nigeria, there's a Kenya, there's a Ghana, there's a Cote d'Ivoire, there's Egypt. There's many different African countries which with their own perspectives and their own cultures and their own ideas and traditions. and they're not being represented individually, we kind of get grouped up into this like Wakanda state where, you know, we are a country of Africa and people just have to kind of put on an accent and, you know, do something, I don't want to say silly, but sometimes it's silly. And so what happens is in that the personal identity gets lost, right? So our identities are being shown through the prisms of other people's ideas, right? And I call these like populist establishments, which are, you know, your Hollywood systems or your kind of your streamers, your broadcasters, whatever they are, where they commission a brief. They commission a brief that says this is what it means to be an African, and this is what we think our audience wants to see, as opposed to what does it actually mean on the ground for someone growing up today. And I think with technology, with resources, with more information than we've ever had access to before, what kind of filmmaker, what kind of storyteller, what kind of experience do I have as Khalid, the individual South African, Lebanese heritage who lives on the continent of Africa in the time where Africa has become trending? What is my experience as a filmmaker? And that's a very different experience than the person who's experiencing that 100 meters from where I'm sitting. So I think those nuances are kind of lost when it comes to the storytelling on the African continent and then the individual countries. And so it's so important for me. It's really important that we look at us and our perspectives, our heritages. And, you know, there's this idea that they say filmmaking is writing history with lightning. And so if you're doing that with your film, what are you writing? What are you carving out in history? You know, and right now there's a storytelling land grab happening, and either you're prepared to offer your cultural real estate, or you have to protect it. One of the two, and that's what's happening across the board. So that's the kind of the idea of the personal filmmaking part of, you know, personal cinematic filmmaking. Let me go on to the next one, and that is cinematic, right? So the cinema aspect of it. To me, cinema is so important. It's as a format, as an art form, it is so important because it covers three main things for me. It's the power of cinema, the communal element of cinema, and then there's this primitive essence to it, right? And the power of cinema and the communal element is tied into the primitive element. So what happens is there is a feeling, there's an experience that takes place when you enter a cinema, right? And that's the reason why even streamers like Netflix, like Showmax, like all these people, there's a reason why they still do premieres, like physical premieres, because there's just something you can't override about the human experience of walking into a room and experiencing a singular message all at once, right? And I think it's so important to keep that in mind, because that takes me to my next point about the kind of the primitive or traditional essence of cinema. And that is, no matter how busy times get, no matter what's happening in your life, no matter how many billboards there are up there or digital ads or, you know, the marketing, which unfortunately I'm a part of for my sins, but I hate, you know, there's so much of it that it dilutes everything. It occupies our minds, right? And so where else can you go? Anywhere in the world where you can walk into a cinema, buy a ticket, sit down in a completely dark room, like a temple, and experience a singular message for 2 hours. And if there's more than one person in there, you're all experiencing the same message. Maybe you're translating it differently, but it's all being experienced through one prism, which is the filmmaker's idea. And that is such a powerful tool, in my opinion, right? And so that leads me to the third thing, which is then the power of that, right? The power of cinema, the power of film, because not everything will go to cinema, but the power of film and the power of cinema as a context, which is cinema is a feeling, right? It's a psychology, it's a philosophy. And so the power of it is that, you know, I have these conversations sometimes and I say to people now, I'm like, listen, I don't even have to engage with you anymore. There's been a case study. There's a 3-year case study that just happened. During COVID, filmmakers, storytellers saved lives. Every single day, filmmakers got people through the lives they were living. People were stuck between four walls in their homes, alone sometimes. And the only thing that helped them cope and survive COVID was us, storytellers. So when people look at me and they say, well, storytelling, is it important? Is it not too important? It is important. It's the most important thing. And you know what? Yes, films do cure cancer. You know, this rhetoric around, well, you know, it's not like you're curing cancer. They do cure cancer because yes, there's a treatment. The chemo, when someone's sitting and having chemo, I was having this conversation a few days ago, that when someone's sitting and having chemo, they're getting the treatment they need. But psychologically and emotionally and physiologically, there is, while they're sitting there for 6 hours getting technically the poison put into their body, they need something that will get them through those 6 hours. They don't stare at the wall for 6 hours. They engage with film. They engage with cinema. That is what gets them through. That's what lifts not just their spirits, but their psychologies. And I think it's such an important case to be made for the importance of a specific kind of personal, intimate cinema. So that's kind of the end. I get very passionate about this stuff. So if I ramble, just stop me. You know, and so now I'm going back to that because I am passionate about it. And I think it's so important because what it did is it helped change the way people not just looked at the lives they lived, but looked at whether or not they wanted to live the lives they lived. That's how much it affected the day-to-day of people during COVID. And so that's why it's so important to me. So for me, it's I'm just looking at some of my notes here. And I want to be frank and like transparent with everybody. So for me, it's really important because it does two things. And the important cinema for me does two things. I know there's a lot of entertainment out there, and there's a lot of entertainment cinema, or like mandate cinema, as I call it, which is like, look, get it done because we need to like put something in the theaters, right? But there's very few films happening that are so personal and so intimate and so reflective. Because that's what cinema is about. It's two things, right? It's either a window or a mirror. So it's either there to reflect where you are, what you want, who you are, where you want to be, or just reflect on the moment in your life. And that's it. Like, it doesn't have to be life-changing. Or it's an escape, which is a window. And you can leave that window to the front yard, you can leave that window to the streets, or you can leave that window to another country or another galaxy. It doesn't matter. But the idea is that this is the essence of cinema. It's either there to reflect or to escape. And I wish that there was more characters with spiritual, moral backbones. It's kind of this thing I wrote yesterday, which I just wanted to say. But yeah, so that's the cinematic part, right? And then this all gets encapsulated in the filmmaking side. The filmmaking side. And that for me is kind of the ultimate kind of piece of this puzzle, which is that with the advent of technology, with the access to resources we have, with technology has democratized filmmaking, right? It's allowed people who live in a house, who know nothing about anything, who can't access the studios, can't access the broadcasters, can't access the streamers, can't access anyone. They've allowed them the opportunity to pick up their phone, make a film, cut it on their laptops. Like, I'm talking to you now from a different city. You're talking to me from a different city. Bash is, I'm sure, in a different city. We're able to all do that now. And whoever else is watching, we're able to all do that through technology. And what we haven't done is we haven't taken film, which is an industry that's just over 100 years old and that's been evolved over time. But the irony is that it evolved the most when there was less technology. Now that there's more technology, we still apply the same formats. We still take 6 months to kind of generate this idea of what a film should be, whereas we can try and test and learn and fail and grow, and all doing that with technology that doesn't have the main thing that was an issue, or a kind of a gatekeeper for filmmaking, which is what kept the culture ceiling on other filmmakers of color, like black and brown filmmakers, is the money. Like, it costs too much money to make film. Now it doesn't. Now you can make a film on your iPhone, cut it on your laptop, and email it to a streamer. You can send it to them via cloud. You don't even have to send it, like, you don't have to take it to them. So I think that with all that access, I just think to myself sometimes, what do directors 70s, 80s, 90s, what do they do with this kind of work? What would they have done with this kind of technology? Like a Claude Lelouch or an Ozu or a Bresson or a Rossellini. Like, what would they have done with this kind of technology? And we're not doing that. We're not evolving the form. And I think that that's a responsibility on us to do so, because it's not about the tools. It's about the approach. It's more importantly is the approach, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to communicate the reflection of who you are in today's society in such a like a convoluted, and in a society, let's be honest, where everyone's trying to make the glittier things, the things that glitter the most, the things that have the most gimmicks, the things that have the most color, the things. What about the simple story? What about a story of a young brother who can't raise enough money to visit his brother who's sick in a different province? That's it. And what we're not doing, this, and when I kind of speak about the filmmaking format, I'm speaking about how, and I'm going to be honest, like how the South African industry is not doing enough for the unestablished and, entry level, I want to say entry level, emerging, let's call it emerging. It's the unestablished and the emerging filmmakers. There's not enough being done to them. There's enough resources and talent and being chopped up between the established companies and the established industry. But what we need to do now is stop saying, look, well, can I get money? And then, and obviously, and to be honest with you, let's create a balance. The NFVF, for example, right? I criticize the NFVF a lot, but they do a lot as well for the industry. The reality is, how much can they do though? If they approve 20 projects a year, 20 filmmakers and 50 million are going to make a film that year. Let's say not all of them are filmmakers. Let's say 10 million is filmmakers. That's 20 filmmakers of 10 million are going to make their film that year. That for me is unacceptable. So instead of complaining, there's an indie format, which I love, right? And this indie format, what it does is it allows us to take minimal resources, create intimate stories with characters that have spiritual and moral backbones, and make those films ourselves, create them within this little community and deliver them. And what we do is we end up creating an industry that's parallel to this mandate industry. This industry of essentially peripheral filmmakers who are making films with no rules, making films that push the film form forward, that allow us to experiment and grow and allow us to figure out our voices. And that's one of the biggest issues we have, is there's so much tied into the projects that are made through these financing companies, that everybody's too scared to evolve. That's why if you look now, the reality is all the films look the same. And I'm going to throw myself into that section. I made a film recently, and I feel like we just don't get to push the boundaries as much as we need to, or as much as we should. And so I think it's important that if you then create a parallel industry of peripheral filmmakers who follow no rules, who push the film forward, not only do we make great South African film, not only do we tell great South African / if you then want to speak to African filmmakers, stories, but we also get to contribute to the film language, the global film language, not just be basically like diversity cards in it, where everyone's like, okay, we're just going to kind of hand out some money to you guys. And it doesn't matter whether we ever get involved in an international stage, whether we ever compete on an international stage. All that matters is that someone has said, I'm giving you some money. We don't need people to hand out money to us. We know what to do with the little we have. So this is kind of where it's important for me that the filmmaking is perceived or understood, because yes, it's great for 1 billion people to see a film and for the film to make $1 billion or whatever the case is. But the reality is that it's also okay to want 100 to 1,000 people to see your film and to maybe change 1 or 2 of their lives. Maybe. That's enough that should be enough for some people. And I think it's important that we engage on that level and have a conversation on that level. And I don't want to drag this on, but that's kind of where I am with everything. And that's what journalization is to me. And what I want to do is, I don't know how this would work, but I would love to engage with you on some of it. I don't know if you have any questions, or if anybody has any questions, and I'm keen to have a conversation.
I'm not sure on Bash's side, but you know what you just said? I thought of, there's a lady who's been coming to these live sessions. Her name is, I think, Thandi Zulu, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
But she's a spiritual woman. She's a pastor, and she was working at SABC. She was in HR, and something told her that there was something pestering her that she needs to leave. She needs to leave right before SABC. Okay, I'm not gonna say it went down, but right before like the commotion. So something was like, leave, the space is not for you anymore. Go out there and create your own content that is going to be related to what you know and what you believe people need to hear and what people need to understand. So she left, she quit her job, not knowing what she's going to do. And then she started going to different programs, attending workshops, and she's been avid at coming to these workshops. And she maintains that she believes that she is eventually going to go to Tyler Perry's studio, if I'm not mistaken. I hope I'm not telling her story wrong, but she's going to go to Tyler Perry's studio just to get training, because she doesn't have like any formal training in film. She was in HR previously. The only training she has is those small workshops that she attends and the programs that she does and the certificates she gets. So she's saying she's going to go and train with Tyler Perry and then come back. And with that, she wants to create a TV show, if I'm not mistaken, that is going to be not Christian based, but it's going to play a lot of gospel music, but not like your like common gospel music, the gospel music that people find boring, I for lack of a better word. And she's going to introduce a lot of things that are Christian based. But Nje, what you're saying has just given me an idea. I don't even think she understands that she wants to go into indie film. I honestly don't think so. And I think if she could, I know she's going to watch this though, but if she could get to know that, then now she knows how to channel her craft. She'll even understand she doesn't even need funds, because she's a well-connected lady. She can just put people together and things could happen. And talent would get an opportunity to put their faces out there, which is one of the things that she's mostly behind, promoting young talent and giving them the platform to showcase their talent.
Well, it's a good model. I mean, that's the model. That's the idea of indie filmmaking. I never had, I'm a film school dropout. I wasn't able to continue at film school. I didn't understand it. I didn't know. I jumped in from a traditional Lebanese household. I don't have any kind of background in art or, music, film, nothing. I just really fell in love with it. And a friend of mine, Charles, who was going to study it, he told me he was going to go study film. And I was shocked. I was like, I didn't even know, I thought God made those things happen. I didn't know that there was a crew. I didn't even understand it. So when I went to study it, I realized that a lot of it is and I don't mean this in an offensive way. I just a lot of the local film schools, they train people to be crew members. They don't train them to be filmmakers. They train them to be crew members of someone else's filmmaker, and I think that's an issue. I think you have to train them to be confident enough to tell their stories. And yes, crew members are the most important thing. Obviously, they're extremely important, and without them, we can't get anything done. That's not what I'm saying, but I mean the mindset is important. And the culture ceiling is this thing that I call the culture ceiling, which is even when I was studying film, until I went onto a set myself and saw it, I didn't know what it meant to be a filmmaker. I didn't know what it took to be a filmmaker, and so my culture ceiling rised a little bit. And then and when I tried to make my first film and failed, I was like, oh, now I know how to kind of go a little further and a little further. And now, like with basically three feature films under my belt, I'm still like, now I get up and I'm like, oh, now I know how to make a feature film. And I think it's great because this industry, you never finish learning. People pay you to dream. People pay you to learn. Every day you go and you lie. It's illusions, right? You go into a meeting and they say, can you do this? You're like, yeah, I can shoot this and this is how I'm going to do it. But you don't know how you're going to do it. It's an illusion. You're creating this illusion. And so people pay you to learn, which is an amazing thing. Like, it's an amazing thing to be in this industry. And the lady you're talking about, I mean, I'd love to engage with her and what she wants to do. But that's the idea, is to be able to take a small crew of people, skeleton, I'm talking about 5 people, and make an entire feature film, or less even sometimes, and make an entire feature film with cast who's looking to be in a feature film. And, people do that all the time overseas. And sometimes it is the culture ceiling. And I think it's important that, for example, like, I was having this conversation the other day with Charles, who's still my partner now. And we were talking about the NVF, and we were saying that, the NVF, if they want to support, what they need to do is also they need to, you see the tiers, because they have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. But the tier 1, or I think it's tier 3, I don't know which way it works again, because I think I've only submitted once to them, because I found it, it just made no sense to me. So I didn't do it again. But the tier, whichever tier has the kind of unestablished filmmakers, so the emerging filmmakers, they also need to take into account that these young people don't know how to do documents. So because even if you provide money for an unestablished filmmaker who doesn't have access, who doesn't have resources, to then require them to do the same level of documentation as you would an established company with an accounts division is not fair. It's still not, it doesn't make sense. Everything needs to be restructured. Everything needs to be looked at through a different prism, which is like, what we'll do is we're going to take 2 million rand and we're going to make 20 100,000 rand films and allow 20 directors to test their ideas, allow 20 crew members to work on a film set. And then if they can negotiate deals with gear houses and all this stuff, they have the power, they have the access, they have the relationships, more importantly. And imagine what would happen if every year we allow 20 new voices to go out and experiment with 100,000 rand film. My first film I made for like 65,000 rand, and it was feature film. It got into Durban Film Festival. It was at 6 awards, 6 international film awards, including Durban. I sold it to Showmax, and I licensed it to them for multiple years. I mean, and I own that film outright. That's my film. I don't owe anybody anything for that. It's, and I think it's important that people understand these kind of things and that can engage on that level so that they can go, oh, you know what, tomorrow I'm going to start prepping my next film. And then at some point when the value reaches kind of the main market, then you can make a decision if you want to move into that. But it's important that you create, because you're not going to learn. And the reality is the reason our local voices are not as, although the talent is there, and you're sorry, I banged my table. And you were speaking about the SABC. I just want to kind of say, I was, and I'm going to confess something to you. Like the industry kind of talks about the SABC as a bad place that's mismanaged and all that stuff. And I'm sure that they are like mismanagement. But I went to a meeting at the SABC a few years ago, and I walked into that boardroom, and that boardroom was filled with some of the smartest people, film related, not accountants, film related. They were dissecting every element of what it takes to tell the right story. And I was shocked, and I was a little embarrassed because I had gone in there with this preconception that, SABC people don't know what they're doing. The reality is it's full of talent. There's a lot of talent in South Africa. But if you don't allow people to exercise, it's unrealistic to take a director who's done nothing, give them their first film, and then when it turns out like not too well, punish them by essentially overseeing their work for a few more films to come. They have to have an opportunity to exercise. I call this thing like exercise and exercise. So exercise like muscles and exercise demons. Like you have to be able to kind of work through those things. Sorry, I rambled. So let me let you get back to it.
No, it's okay. It's okay. I was just saying that I find that interesting. And also the phone, taking an entire film through the phone, that's something that I've been actually wanting to explore. It's just, I'm for now, I'm still wanting to explore it. Maybe after this conversation, I'm gonna do something about it.
You should look into Sean Baker, which is the obvious one. And he made Tangerine with with an iPhone, and he made another film before that with an iPhone. But you should also look into a more established filmmaker. His name is Steven Soderbergh. And he's made like 4 or 3, but let me say 4 because it sounds better. 4 iPhone films on iPhone, films that are on Netflix, films that, see, that's also the other thing is that people should go look into, Christopher Nolan is amazing. And I had this kind of happen to me when I went to film school. I knew nothing about film. I come from a brown household. I'm Lebanese. I come from a small, city in Lebanon. My dad moved here because of the war. There was a lot of stuff that happened, and I don't know anything about film. And I walked into film school, and the first thing they showed us is like Saving Private Ryan, which is a Steven Spielberg film. And obviously it's like extremely high budget, extremely well shot, extremely technical, overwhelming. And I was like, I don't think I'm going to ever be able to do this. Not in the mindset that I'm in now. I don't think I'll ever be able to achieve it. So my advice is don't try and like recreate a Nolan film or like a, David Fincher. And all. These people have access to millions of dollars worth of budgets. Go look at people like Mark Duplass. Go look at people like Joe Swanberg. Go look at Kevin Smith. These people make films with like tiny budgets. It's about people who are talking about their lives. They don't care. There's a film called Creep. It's Creep 1 and 2, and there's a third one, which Mark Duplass makes. And these brothers, there's two brothers like Mark and Jay Duplass, and they focus on indie filmmaking, and they focus on what they call mumblecore, which is people who talk, walkies and talkies, like people who go into different spaces, talk about their lives, talk about their relationships. Creep, though, is a different film, and that's like a film about spoilers, but it's a film about a killer. And basically, they went up to a cabin with it's the cameraman and the actor who's also the director, and they just went up into the cabin. They made a feature film. It was on, I don't know if it's still on Netflix, but it was on Netflix. First one, second one, and I think the third one, if I'm not mistaken. And those films, I think, each cost like $500. So I don't think that, it's realistic to try and achieve those like massive international budgeted films. I think it's great to be able to tell like a everyday story. And we get back to telling stories about people as opposed to stories about things, because I think it's a massive part of filmmaking to be iconoclast, to be a rebel, to go against materialism and focus on idealism. And I think we need, in today's world, which is like super materialistic and let's be honest, pessimistic, I think it's great to have some idealistic people who are hoping through film. I think that's it for myself. I could do this all day, but I'm sure you're.
Okay, one more thing that I personally would like to know. What is the relationship, if there is, between indie film and, the indie film making style and YouTube?
Okay, so YouTube is a broadcaster, and I mean like a streaming platform, really. And they have a lot of great access, and I think it's great access. It's basically like free exhibitor, but depends on what it is you're trying to do. I would say, like, as someone who, runs my own business and production business, filmmaking, like I said, for my sins, commercials and other things. But for someone who does that, YouTube is a great platform to test out short films. Like, we created a short film, which we didn't even focus on it too much. It was called Caffeine, which was a young woman who walks into a room, sits down, and drinks a cup of coffee. And the idea was to play on this idea of how people want to watch other people live, right? But we don't even want to do that with effort. We want to do that where it's like, if it's shiny, if it's quick, if it's consumable, if it's like 8 seconds, 10 seconds, maximum 60 seconds, we'll sit down and listen to you. We'll sit down and watch you. And even then, we might just scroll up halfway through your sentence. But are we really interested in other people, or are we just interested in like things that we care about them? And so then does it become like this navel gazing, selfish thing? So we did this film called Caffeine with an actress called Mandisa, who's great. She's a singer. I think her I am Meloko Love. I think I can't remember her full name, so I'm just using her Instagram tag. And basically what she did is she walked into a room and we shot it on Instagram. So what we did is we went live on Instagram, and we went live with 2 different cameras. You know how when you speak to someone, it blocks the screen. And what we did is we put on 2 different cameras as if someone's going to speak to someone else. But we had one on her, and then as a wide frame, and the other one as a close-up of the coffee cup she was drinking. So we created 2 cuts on Instagram. We created a wide shot and a close-up. And for half an hour, she just sat and drank her coffee, and people logged into the session, watched for a bit, and then logged out. And I don't think we didn't really market it or anything. We wanted to try it. We wanted to exercise. We wanted to exercise and exercise. We wanted to experiment. We wanted to try different things, and it cost us nothing but the data. It cost her. It allowed her to try something out from performance style, and we played it live, and then that's it. It was gone, and it's a piece of art that I'm happy with. I love. I think is great. We don't have to show it to anyone, but you can do stuff like that with YouTube. But as I don't know if I told you, but I'm a writer, director, screenwriter, and director by choice, and a producer by force. Like I'm forced to be a producer just so I can make my own films. But as an indie producer specifically, I would say Showmax is picking up films. Showmax, Amazon, they're picking up. I mean, look, Netflix obviously is. I don't, they obviously have a very different process of how they approach things, but Amazon is picking up films. And if Amazon isn't picking up films, Showmax is picking up a lot of films, and they're picking up films and they allow access. I mean, speak to people there like Chanda, who they will pick up your phone no matter what. I mean, not say no matter what, but I mean, there's a they're very interactive with the filmmakers in South Africa, which I think is great. And I think they provide a platform for South African filmmakers. They don't give a lot of money, which is fine. If you make a small film with an intimate film with your team, that's okay. You get access, you get people, you get to say, look, I'm on Showmax, go watch it, tell me what you think. So I would rather go that option than YouTube, really, just because YouTube is great for like short forms and that kind of stuff. But so not YouTube.
Okay. I don't know if you have questions.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Let me check.
Or you mean them?
No. If the people. Okay, we don't have any questions. No problem. I think all my questions were answered. Do you mind sharing any of your contact details?
Sure.
Because this is going to be saved on our YouTube, on our Facebook, so people might watch it again. So okay. Please just say your
do you want me to give it to you or say it here?
You can just say it.
Okay. So I think if you go to my Instagram, which is it sounds weird to say that. If you go to my Instagram, which is at Indie Khalid, so it's INDIE, Indie Khalid, KHALID. You'll find me there, and then you'll also see my website is there as well, so you can literally go to my website, and then there's an email for someone if you want any advice, if there's anything you want to chat about. We're a small team. We're happy to always help where we can, and we specialize in indies, so that's kind of the thing that we do the most.
Okay, cool. And I'll definitely let the lady know about.
Please.
Yeah.
Super keen to engage. Yeah.
That was nice. That was a nice, engaging session. At first, I was like, "What is this topic?" But now, yeah. I'm glad I was part of it.
Thank you. I really appreciate the time, and Bash, thanks on the other side there. And yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Have a nice evening.
Thanks. You too. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.